One of the difficulties of making Avengers Infinity War was the enormous size of the cast, but Thanos took care of that little problem by decimating half of all life in the universe with just the snap of his fingers. Now those who are left are scrambling to make things right, and it may be time for some non-superheroes to perform some heroic feats. Today we're going to be talking about Luis and the role he may play during Endgame. Truly great Marvel movies have a way of surprising us, and sometimes these surprises don't come in the form of a plot twist or an unexpected character development. Sometimes the best way to shock both Marvel movie and comic book fans is to introduce a new character with a minor role and a huge sense of humor. Just look at the character Korg from Thor Ragnarok and how much life and humor director Taika Waititi brought to the role and the movie as a whole. Even Idris Elba, who plays Heimdall, claims that this was the first Thor movie he actually had fun working on. If Marvel audiences are capable of falling in love with a talking pile of rocks, just imagine how attached they can get to other minor characters with impeccable comedic timing. Michael Pena is a fantastic comedic actor who has gained no shortage of fans due to his appearance in the Ant-Man franchise. He plays the part of the wisecracking, storytelling Luis, a longtime friend of Scott Lang. He may have been arrested for stealing two smoothie machines, but this doesn't mean that he's a useless, funny background character. In fact, after the first two Ant-Man movies, fans began demanding to know when Luis would get his very own standalone movie, and on that front, we have some rather bad news. According to Ant-Man director Peyton Reed, that won't be happening anytime soon. When asked about the possibility of a Luis movie, he simply replied with, "Nope." Short and to the point. We don't like that answer, but we approve of its brevity. Considering that Luis doesn't have any superpowers or a super suit of any kind, we can't be too hurt or surprised that he won't be getting his own movie. But this doesn't mean he can't step up and have a larger part to play in the MCU. After all, despite being a minor character, he's had a huge impact on everything that's happened to Scott Lang so far. The two have become pals while serving time in San Quentin State Prison. Luis for the aforementioned smoothie machine heist, and Scott for pulling a digital Robin Hood on a company called VistaCorp. When Scott was finally released from prison, he met up with Luis, who had been through some rather tough times. His girlfriend broke up with him, his mother passed away, and his father was deported. But despite all of this, Luis maintained his positive attitude and his van, which has a surprisingly important role in the life of Ant-Man. If you'll recall from the first Ant-Man movie, Luis was the one who got Scott involved with the heist he had put together, which required breaking into the house of Hank Pym. While Scott was the one breaking and entering, Luis was responsible for acquiring all of the necessary information and relaying it to Scott, which allowed him to get in and out of the house safely. In fact, Scott only got into trouble when he tried to return the suit and Hope Van Dyne called the cops on him. Come on, Hope, nobody likes a tattletale. When Scott gets involved with Hank and Hope in order to stop the bad guys and save the day, he goes to Luis for help. He's able to fight off the guards, but also shows a surprising amount of compassion during this time. When things go south, Luis gets the head of security to safety, sparing him from being caught up in the explosion of the building. We aren't saying that makes Luis a superhero, just that he finds a way to get going when the going gets tough. In addition to being responsible for getting Hank and Scott together, at the end of Ant-Man, we see that he's trying to connect Ant-Man with Falcon. This leads to Scott making an appearance during Captain America Civil War, and during Ant-Man and the Wasp, we learn that Luis is still making connections. Now he started his own business, ex-con security consultants. He also asserts that he knows all about Hank Pym and his forays into the quantum realm at this point, and that's information which few people have. We've also seen him work with Hank's technology, namely his devices which allow the user to shrink or grow different objects. At the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, we saw that Luis was going to look for both Scott and Hope before he was interrupted by Birch. Luis is a strong, street-savvy guy, but to be honest, his greatest superpower is really how likable he is. He was such a hit when he joined the MCU that he ended up being added to the astonishing Ant-Man series as part of the mainstream Marvel Comics universe. According to actor Michael Pena, people are always asking him what other Marvel movies he's going to be in, but Pena claims knowing that this is one power he doesn't have. As we all know, Ant-Man was conspicuously absent during Avengers Infinity War, despite being called into action action during Captain America Civil War a few years prior, but during the mid-credits scene, we saw Scott enter the quantum realm and remain there after Thanos snapped his fingers at the end of Infinity War. Then our lives as we know it were forever changed because we finally got to see the highly anticipated trailer for Avengers Endgame. We were absolutely dying to see our favorite heroes again, and many expected a surprising new ally to show up, namely Captain Marvel, whose standalone movie will be released prior to Endgame, but to everyone's shock and delight, the hero we actually needed was Ant-Man. Yes, somehow he managed to escape from the quantum realm and make his way to Avengers headquarters. He even cheerfully reminded Captain America that they fought together at the airport a few years ago. Obviously, we immediately wanted to know how he managed to get out of the quantum realm. Getting out of there on your own was long thought to be impossible. Just ask Janet Van Dyne about it. And as far as we're aware, everyone who knew he was there and had the ability to get him out had disappeared at the end of Infinity War. Some people theorize that Scott managed to escape using something called a time vortex, which exists within the quantum realm. Before he set out, Janet had warned him about these, and many thought it was just some passing comment, but the fact that Scott somehow escaped has caused many to think that it may have been a clue about what'll happen during Endgame. After all, we have to imagine that some sort of time-traveling tomfoolery will have to take place. We've seen our heroes back on set for the Battle of New York, and we've seen time travel used before in Doctor Strange and Infinity War. Could Scott and the remaining Avengers utilize the time vortexes in order to stop Thanos and undo his evil deeds? That seems to be a popular theory at the moment, but let's talk about one other involving our good friend and human jukebox, Luis. Very few people in the world know about Ant-Man's real identity, who Hank Pym is, or have any idea about the quantum realm. In fact, unlike most Marvel movies, neither Ant-Man or Ant-Man and the Wasp really affects the MCU as a whole. The events don't take place in the larger universe, which is why parts of it were able to take place during Infinity War without causing an issue. But Luis is one of the few people who know about Scott and the quantum realm, and we know he's always looking out for his good friends. Since he wasn't in the van when Scott entered the quantum realm, we haven't seen any evidence that suggests he didn't survive the end of Infinity War. The fact is, it's likely that if he is still alive, he's probably looking to Scott to find out what's going on, or at the very least, he's probably looking for his beloved van. We've seen Luis utilize Hank's technology before, so if he managed to find the van and realize what's going on, then perhaps he was able to get Scott out of the quantum realm without involving any sort of time travel. He could have simply used the same technology Hank Pym utilizes to transport people in and out of the quantum realm. Even when he's traveling throughout the dangerous quantum realm, Scott stays connected with his friends on the outside using some type of radio communication, so at the very least, if he managed to find his van, there's a chance Luis could communicate with Scott, and by putting their heads together, they could probably figure out a way to help Scott escape from the quantum realm. Why Luis? Well, let's be honest, a lot of things need to get done during Endgame, possibly including, but not limited to, our heroes tracking down all the Infinity Stones across space and time. While we may see some new characters, we think it's far more likely that we'll see heroes getting help from characters we've already met in order to save time on introductions and character development. During Infinity War, even the awesomely badass Black Order missed out on getting backstories because of time constraints. Having Luis show up and step up would make sense, as it would explain how Scott got out of the quantum realm and how he's still driving that van around. Luis isn't exactly an Avenger, but we're sure the general public found out fairly quickly what happened, even if it took some time to learn the true explanation about Thanos, the Infinity Stones, and all of that. If you personally know a superhero, we're sure they'd be the first person you'd try to get in contact with after a massive worldwide disaster, so if Luis sees people he knows disappear or even just hears about it in the news, there's no way he wouldn't immediately try to reach out to Scott, or even Hank, to find out what's going on. He also knows that Scott was using his van to go into the quantum realm to collect particles in order to heal Ghost. Luis saving Scott makes sense, and bringing his character into Endgame could provide so much needed comic relief. After all, the previous Marvel movie ended with half of the population of the universe being wiped out, and in the entertainment industry, we call that a real bummer. There's a lot of information that's going to need to be communicated between the remaining Avengers, Scott, and those of us in the audience. Who better better to give us a hilariously and oddly informative breakdown than Luis? We know we probably aren't ever going to get a standalone movie about him, and we've accepted that, I promise, but that doesn't mean he can't have a part to play in the MCU, even if it's not a big one. As for how Luis would find the van, we frankly don't think it would be that difficult for someone like Luis. He runs his own security firm and is a former criminal, so tracking down a vehicle should be no problem. We've seen that people from the quantum realm do have the ability to contact those outside of it. During Ant-Man and the Wasp, Scott had what he thought was a dream about Janet Van Dyne. He saw himself in the quantum realm and then experienced some of Janet's memories. If Janet was able to get a message to Scott from inside the quantum realm, then it's possible Scott could do the same thing now that he's found himself trapped inside the same situation she was once in. Even if Luis doesn't manage to go looking for Scott of his own accord, there's still a chance Scott may be able to get a message through and request help from his bro on the outside. How do you think Scott Lang will escape the quantum realm? Do you think Luis will rescue him, or will he find another way out? Let us know what role you think Luis will have during Avengers Endgame. Then take a moment to click on the subscribe button for more great MCU videos from CBR. Thanks for watching.